All right. So as I was saying, many wants Ghanaian citizenship, but the process can sometimes be complicated, especially when it comes to the legalities. So that's where we, as an organization, Diaspora Affairs GH, we come in. We normally serve as your bridge home for the Ghanaian and global diaspora, where we help you in your journey towards live, invest, and some settle in Ghana as seamless as possible. So today we are going to be dealing and talking about the topic most of our Facebook community we normally request for, which is the dual citizenship, the residence permit way. So many often wants to just go straight away and apply for the dual citizenship and think that's the only option. But there is also another alternative, which is the resident permit way. So to guide this conversation, I'm also we have it in two parts. We have the moderator and the host. So the moderator will be asking questions from the guest, sorry, and the guest will answer so that we'll go as fast as possible. Then there'll be a question and answer. If you have any question, you click at the lower part of your screen, the I think 9 box. You click on it, then you see Q&A, where you input your question. Then we access so that everything will be on time. All right. So to do this, I first have to hand over to our moderator, who is Sarah Hudson. She is our Diaspora Affairs Administrator. And finally, I also introduce our guest, which we are privileged to have Chief Superintendent Abigail Lai, who is a Senior Legal Officer at the Ghana Immigration Service with over 11 years of experience. So please join me in welcoming Sarah and Abigail. Please do take over.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Good evening to you all. And it can be a morning or an afternoon, depending on where you are watching us from. We especially want to welcome you to this webinar. It is something that we've been preparing for a very long time, because you know that the issue we are coming to discuss is something that is of great importance to our family in the diaspora. So we'll just go straight to the point, and then we will start. Just like my colleague said, it is going to be kind of an interview form. We'll just prepare some questions that are directly linked to the topic we are speaking about. And then our resource person, who is versed in the subject we are discussing, will come up with responses that will answer every question we put to her. So I would allow her to start. She would give a brief overview of what dual citizenship is all about, and every other information will follow us, and she is done. So, hi, Madam Abigail. Once again, you are welcome, and we are privileged to have you on this session. Please tell us about dual citizenship and how that is connected to acquiring a resident permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for having me in your webinar. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Okay. So when we talk about dual citizenship, it simply means that you have you have the citizenship of two or more. Dual means two, so actually two countries. So I am a Ghanaian. So if I'm a dual national, it means that I have a second nationality in addition to my Ghanaian nationality. So in relation to our brothers and sisters from the diaspora, dual nationality would then mean that obtaining Ghanaian citizenship in addition to the citizenship they already hold, be it American, Jamaican, Canadian, or British, whatever it may be. Now, in Ghana, I'm sure that when it comes to obtaining citizenship, it would vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So everything we're going to be talking about is in relation to obtaining Ghanaian citizenship. Now, there are two main ways that the law recognizes when you want to obtain Ghanaian citizenship. The first is by registration, and the second is naturalization. So when it comes to registration, there are two main categories that the law actually provides for. The first category are nationals or people that from time to time the Minister for the Interior would decide that upon application they are persons of good character, that they can speak or understand a Ghanaian language. They have been in Ghana for periods of up to 5 years or less, and they are persons of good character. I think I have said that already. And so, but this particular category is hardly used under registration. I can recall that there have been two instances where our presidents have two different presidents. So our immediate past president, and then the current president in his first term, they registered some persons from the diaspora. This was actually arranged with the diasporan community in Ghana. I know they have various agencies, so the presidency actually liaised with them and then granted citizenship to certain persons. But that is not the norm. These are just two isolated circumstances or instances, so we cannot really rely on them. Now, when the other leg of registration is through marriage. If you're married to a Ghanaian, so if you're a foreigner and you marry a Ghanaian, then you are entitled to be registered as a Ghanaian. And usually we don't request for much. The only requirement would be the proof of marriage, which you would have to present your marriage certificate. And also, if you're a man, then your source of livelihood would be interested in knowing that as well if you want to be permanently, become a Ghanaian citizen. In the case of a woman, all we just request is, the marriage certificate. And of course, in that instance, you would need to have at least resided in Ghana for 1 year. So that's pretty simple. So if you do not or you don't intend marrying a Ghanaian, then it means that registration will not avail you. So then that now brings me to the other leg. So I talked about two main forms. So then registration, we are done. Now we are coming to naturalization, which is what majority, all other persons apply through. They use the naturalization because not many people are married to Ghanaians. Let me see. So I don't know if I should continue. Is it clear up to this point? Would they have to bring in the questions as I go on, or maybe when I'm done? How are we?
Yeah, so the questions will be submitted on the page that Aaron directed us to. So when we are done, we would answer them.
Okay.
So at this point, I think it is made two forms. So now we're left with what we have decided to talk about, which is the resident permit way. Okay. So regarding that, I want to speak about eligibility and the legal framework. It is established now that it is a legal provision to, it's in our laws to acquire the resident permit before you can be able to get to the dual citizenship. So who is eligible to acquire a resident permit? Can you please answer that briefly and then we continue?
Okay, so before we actually even get to the resident permit, I like to go through what the requirements for naturalization are. Then from there, because then you would realize that obtaining a residence permit is one of the requirements. Then I would zoom into the residence permit proper. Is that okay? All right. So with the first requirement, when it comes to naturalization, you'd have to first of all, you should have resided in Ghana for a total period of 8 years. This may be a little confusing, so I'm just going to take my time and try to explain it very well. The period of determination, that is, of your residence in Ghana, is 8 years. Out of the 8 years, the first 12 months, that is, the year preceding your application, you have resided throughout the 12 months. That is what the law requires. However, usually, practically, we know sometimes it's difficult especially for business people or people who have families in other countries to reside throughout in Ghana for 12 years, continuous months. So usually we would consider if the person has been in and out in aggregate 9 months. So it doesn't have to be 9 continuous months, but if we calculate the number of months you have resided in Ghana, within the year preceding your application, if we can get up to 9 months of residence in Ghana, then we would tick, or you would actually pass for that requirement. The second requirement is the 7 years preceding the 12 months that we have just spoken about. So that's what makes it 8 years actually. You should have resided in Ghana in an aggregate of 5 years. So what does that mean? It means that, so let me use years. So we're in 2025. If we are talking about the first, so supposing you applied or you want to apply for citizenship through naturalization in 2025, we're going to look at from 2025, we're already in December, from 2025 December to 2024 December. Have you resided in Ghana for up to at least 9 months in aggregate? So that's the first check. If you pass that check, we move on to 2023. From 2023, counting 7 years backwards. If we calculate your residence in Ghana, the number of years that you have, will you get 5 years in aggregate? Then, if you have, or if you're able to pass that, then it means that you have passed the residence test. So this is why residence permits is very important in applying for naturalization, be it whether it's naturalization or registration. You should have been resident in the country for a certain period. The only difference is that when it comes to the marriage, usually we just look at a period of a year, 1 year at least. But then when it comes to naturalization, that is where the real test for your residence would kick in. So when I'm done with the rest of the requirements, we can zoom into the requirements and eligibility for residence permit proper. Okay. The next requirement is that you should be a person of good character. And this has to be attested by 2 Ghanaians. And these Ghanaians would have to attest to your character. And usually we call them sponsors. And there's a portion for sponsors on the application form that the sponsors would actually complete and sign. And then in addition, write a letter attesting to your good character. And it's not just any person at all or just any Ghanaian. The law prescribes that they ought to be senior public officers or lawyers, doctors, or persons who belong to professional bodies like accountants. These are the kind of people who can actually sponsor or attest to your good character. The next is that your criminal record should be very sound, especially in Ghana. So usually we would ask for a criminal certificate or a police criminal certificate. And then that could be obtained when you apply to the police headquarters or wherever you reside. They would usually provide it for you. And then that would tell us whether you have not been sentenced to any imprisonment in Ghana. Then a very important requirement is that you should be able and understand one indigenous language. So I hope that by now you understand what the framers of this law intended. They want you to actually assimilate with Ghanaians, assimilate our culture, assimilate, because if you want to be Ghanaian, then you need to show interest in what we do, what we eat, and the languages we speak, and our culture. You need to be interested or show some kind of interest in assimilating or blending in. So this is a very important requirement, to be able to speak and understand an indigenous language. However, it is not likely that within 8 years somebody would be very fluent in a Ghanaian indigenous language. So usually it's just the basics. Are you able to communicate your basic needs or exchange pleasantries? Those kind of, those are the things we usually would look out for in this requirement. And then also, this is also a very important, and I think this, if we are considering, this may take about 60% of when we are our determination. It is your ability to contribute or make substantial contribution to the progress or advancement in any national activity in Ghana. And how can we tell whether you are capable of making any substantial contribution? So usually, as part of the administrative requirements that we would take from an applicant, would include your tax clearance certificates. We would also take your personal clearance certificate. What do we want to see? We want to see how much. So when it comes to naturalization, let me add at this point that the only way that you can show that you are making contribution, the main way usually that we would look at is the fact that you have incorporated a company in Ghana, you have employed citizens, you are paying for their social security, you are paying your corporate taxes, and you as an individual and your employees are all paying their personal taxes. All of this put together is what enables us determine whether whatever contributions you are making to the country is substantial. That's the main way. But there are instances where others in academia, so you would have some professors who have resided in Ghana for a number of years and they are imparting knowledge, they are lecturing at the universities, some of them are in villages or deprived communities and imparting knowledge. And in such circumstances, we would usually determine it. So it's actually on a case-by-case basis. Look at what kind of contribution the person has made to the society or to the country. And then that would enable us determine whether it's substantial. Then again, we have had other people in the medical field who would come in, and then medical doctors or other specialized areas and serve in that capacity for many years in the country. So that is also another consideration that we could make, we usually would make. Then you also need to show an intention to permanently reside in Ghana. So so that is why we even want to see by the number of years you are residing in the country. When we calculate in aggregate, we don't want to get anything less than 5 years. All these are things that would show an intention to permanently reside in Ghana. And then, of course, you need a valid residence permit. At this point, I would skip the other administrative requirements like medical exams that you would have to do, financial statements of the company and all of that. But these are the main ones that I've already enumerated. So, Sarah, maybe we could move on to the residence permit now, if all is clear.
Okay. Getting a residence permit, you have to say about sponsorship for someone having a green card. And is there any provisions also for someone who is applying independently without a sponsor? Is there an arrangement for that?
So usually when it comes to residence permits, let me say that we don't require sponsorship. Let me commence this way. In Ghana, before you can obtain a residence permit, there are maybe 2 or 3 considerations. First of all, what are you coming to Ghana to do? Do you have a job? Have you been employed? Do you have an employment? Are you a dependent? A dependent means that are you coming to depend on somebody who already has a residence permit? And we usually will call those people principal holders. And the final one is whether you are retired. So consideration, is also made for persons that have retired. So you just cannot apply for it. So if you just come into Ghana without falling into any of these categories, you cannot apply for residence permit. So if you are coming on the basis of employment, you would usually apply for work, what we call is one process. So you'd usually apply for the work permit and residence permit together. You apply for the work permit first. When it's granted, then the residence permit would also be considered. Now, so I hope that is clear. I wanted to begin on that premise before we proceed to talk about the sponsorship. Now, the sponsorship would mean that the company that you're coming to work for is the one going to apply for you. So usually it's the company's responsibility to bring in the application and all the other supporting documentation that are required. And the employer would then bring in the application, pay the required fees. Then, if everything is okay, you would be granted the residence permit. So that's it when it comes to sponsorship by a company or an institution.
Okay, so moving to our next question. About fees and processing procedures. How much fees are we looking at when obtaining a resident permit or when you are registering for one? What is the financial arrangement for?
So I've shared the fees with you. I want you to share it with our brothers and sisters because there are various categories. of residence permits, and there are various categories of nationalities as well. So if we want to go through that, the fees, I'm sure it will take us a very long time. So you can share the fees with them. It has all the penalties and everything, and the work permit, residence permit when it comes to ECOWAS nationals or other nationals and all of that. It's quite a long list. So maybe they could look at it later. It's quite self-explanatory.
Okay, so when we speak about the processing period, what is the usual processing period, and is there any form of expedited processes as well?
So usually the processing period is 1 month, and officially there's no expedited service that we provide. So once you come in person or your company presents the application with all the documentation as our receiving counter, pay the applicable fees, and then it would be vetted and everything. And usually it could be less, but usually it takes a period of 1 month. So it could be done within a week to 4 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do validity and compliance. How long is the resident permit typically valid? And then what's the procedure for renewal? If you get the permit, how long can you use it? And then what's the procedure if you want to renew the permit?
Okay, so usually the residence permit is valid for 1 year. They could issue you could actually get up to 4 years residence permit at the first instance. And then subsequently, you could be granted residence permit up to 8 years. So it depends on the applicant and the company, and how many years the company wants to apply on behalf of the applicant.
So assuming a permit holder has maybe issue with their employment or their permit expires before renewal, what are the steps that they should take? Maybe their employment circumstances.
So if you change, so for instance, if you are changing, yes, you are changing your employment. No, so when your permit expires, it's the same process. Your company or your employer would apply for you, attaching all the necessary documentation for the renewal, and then you pay the applicable fees. But where you are changing a company, so there are circumstances where yes, there are penalties if you do not when your permit expires and you do not renew promptly. There are penalties, and you would find the penalties on that list that the chart have given to you. You have all the penalties there for residence permit overstay and all of that. What I was going to add is that where you are in an employment and you decide for one reason or the other, you leave and then go into take up another employment, then your new employer, even if that permit has not expired. So for instance, you are in company A, you have 1 year residence permit, and 6 months into the permit, you leave and then obtain or take on another employment. Your new employer would have to apply afresh for you. So it means that immediately your old permit dies, because the law requires that you should not be in the employment of company B when your permit is in the name of company A. So as soon as you leave company A and move to company B to take on a new employment, then that company A permit extinguishes And then your company B would now have to apply for a fresh work residence permit for you. If you are found in company B working when your company, your permit is actually in the name of company A, there are penalties for both the employer and the employee.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we want to speak about the medical requirements. Is it mandatory applicants to undergo the medical examination?
Yes, it's mandatory. And for now, we have a clinic within the premises of the Ghana Immigration Service. And that is where every applicant is required to undertake the medical exam. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so next on our list, when we speak about long dependent permit, is that something like an indefinite
Say
residence
again.
status? Indefinite residence status.
That's
Yes.
indefinite.
And then
Yes.
yes. So I want to explain also the criteria to obtain that. Is there something like that? What's the criteria?
Okay. So the indefinite residence permit status is obtained by foreigners, and they are granted to permanently reside in Ghana. And usually, it's very similar. The requirements are very similar to what I've enumerated with when it comes to citizenship. The only difference is that when you obtain Ghanaian citizenship, you are a citizen of Ghana, and so you can vote and enjoy all the rights that Ghanaian citizens enjoy. However, when you obtain permanent residence, it's just to help you reside in the country permanently without the requirement of coming periodically to renew your permit. So that's the difference. But the requirements are basically the same. The period of determination is also 8 years, just like the citizenship. It's actually the same. So otherwise, I would have to go through everything I went through with the citizen, but it's just the same. The only difference is that the period of determination, usually the permanent residence is faster because, of course, you're not going to be a citizen. But when it comes to citizenship, there are so many other processes. After you have submitted your application, we do a lot of background work and investigation prior to the grant. So that's the difference.
Okay, so and let me use this opportunity to also ask about right of abode. What is the difference between that and then the indefinite residence?
Yes, so right of abode is actually, it has two categories. The first category has to do with Ghanaians who have lost their Ghanaian citizenship and want to come and reside in Ghana. They can apply for right of abode. And this usually happens in countries, so maybe they went to a country that does not recognize dual citizenship and they had to renounce their Ghanaian citizenship. So once they do that and they still want to hold on to that foreign citizenship, when they come to Ghana, they want to reside in Ghana, they can apply. So it's also a long-term permit, just like the indefinite residence. However, this is available to Ghanaians who have lost their citizenship, their Ghanaian citizenship. The other category is for people from the diaspora who also want to reside permanently in Ghana. So those are the two. So it's also a permanent residence, actually, but it's not citizenship. So you cannot enjoy the rights of a citizen. Yes.
Right. So we want to speak about practical guidance and common challenges. So from your experience, what are the most common mistakes or omissions that lead to delay or rejections of resident permit application?
Mostly, you would find that the documentation that are, first of all, yes, the documentation to attach to the permit application sometimes are incomplete. Also, when it comes to the filling of the forms, there's actually a form that you complete as an applicant when you bring in your application. Sometimes too, the information that is provided on the form is inaccurate. There are times you want to reach out to the applicant to inquire or to make further checks, and you dial the number only to realize that the number is not going through or the number is off or incorrect. And so yes, these are the main. Also, some applicants actually provide false information, intentionally provide false information. This is actually an offense when you are found out. So these are actually the common mistakes that some applicants make in applying for the residence. Hello.
Yeah, please, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we go to our last but one question. Are family members such as spouses and children of resident permit holders eligible for dependent resident permit?
Yes, so we call it dependent residence permit. And usually you'd the application letter. So of course we need to be sure that this is actually a relative. So you need to show evidence. If it's a spouse, your marriage certificate would show that that is your spouse. If it's a child, then the birth certificate of the child would be attached to the application. And also we would need the passport of the applicant. So these are the main things that we require for dependents.
Okay. So lastly, so let's say that you have applied and then you are granted the access. How can you verify the status of your application? And then also ensure that all other documents submitted meet the standards of the Ghana Immigration Service.
Okay. So in the first place, at the point of submission, your application would be vetted before you actually before you are allowed to even make the payment. So usually we would quickly go through to ensure that we have all the requirements attached before you submit or you leave. Then after submission, you could always find out or check on the status of your application at the same point of submission, which we call the receiving counter. So that's the official way of actually checking on the status, of your application.
Okay, so I think these are all the questions we prepared that are in relation to acquiring a residence and get onto the journey of becoming a citizen of Ghana. So can we have maybe in a few words conclusion of everything, what dual citizenship is, how acquiring it helps you closer, get you closer to getting your status, and then we can take the questions from our participants. The final words in conclusion.
Say again, Sarah.
Hi, madam.
So my conclusion would be that, yes.
Yes, please, that's what I was asking. Your conclusion,
Yes.
and then final words before we take the question.
Yes. Yes. So my conclusion would be that when you come into Ghana, and usually we know that as soon as you come into Ghana, maybe from the onset, you're not too sure as to whether you want to reside, you want to obtain you want to become a citizen. Some people from the diaspora would want to reside in for a few months, and then assess whether this is a place they want to really reside and obtain citizenship. So as soon as you come in and you are given your visitor's permits at the airport, always remember that it's either for a period of 60 days, between 30 to 60 days. So as soon as this period lapses, you quickly come to the immigration office and apply for an extension of that visitor's permit. So by the end of your stay, whilst you are coming in as a tourist or for whatever reason, once you decide that you make your home or your second home, then as quickly as possible, you need to start thinking about incorporating a company and then running your business, so that as soon as that is done, you could apply for your work and residence permit. Then the period of determination can start running. Otherwise, sometimes you'd find that some people will reside here for a year or two. They move in and out of the country and then come in, and they're always on visitors permit. So by the time they decide that, they are now ready, then they would have spent a number of years, and that period would not count because you are not on residence permit. So it's very important that as soon as you make up your mind, then you obtain your residence permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Madam Abigail. We appreciate so much the insights you have shared with us regarding how to acquire a residence permit and all the other factors that goes into place. I'll hand over now to my colleague Aaron to continue and then ask the question. Hi, Aaron.
Okay.
Hello, Sarah. Yeah, we are currently still waiting for the questions. So please, you can send in your questions so that we ask her. Thank you. Okay, please, there is a question. Someone is asking, is the Ghana card considered a good step in the residence process? is the Ghana card considered a good step in the residence process? That's a question from one of our.
So for us Ghanaians, we have the Ghana card. But if you're a foreigner from the same institution, you'd be given it's called the non-citizen ID card. Yes, so the non-citizen ID card is an additional requirement to residence permits. But the main ones are what it's. I think it was actually one of the questions, but we didn't touch on it. So yes, it's one of the requirements, an additional requirement that you would usually add.
Oh, okay. So another one from the participants is, if you are a retiree, is the process still the same when you enter the country and you want to stay? So if you can elaborate on that. Some don't know the process also.
Yes, so when it comes to a retiree, it's quite pretty simple. Usually you just apply straight for the the residence permit, but we would need the proof of retirement. That's one. And then proof of livelihood. So if you're going to be in Ghana, what would be your means of income or the means of your livelihood? And then also would need 2 Ghanaians to guarantee for you, attest to your good character. As garant, we call them guarantors, or they would sign a bond. We call it a bond in Ghana for you. And then finally, you'd be required to get a letter from the Diaspora desk at the presidency. It's also a pretty simple, it's not difficult to obtain. So you attach that to your application, your form, and the other ones that I've mentioned, then you submit and pay the fee.
Oh, okay. So this question is from Marcia Harris. She's asking, what if there is a child born in Ghana from an American citizen? Would that be considered a step to citizenship? The question again, what if there is a child born in Ghana from an American citizen?
For the child or the parent?
Yes. So for the parents.
Okay. So, no, having children, I think the question is actually in respect of the child, because having children in Ghana does not entitle you to citizenship. And, you know, in other countries, once you are born in the country, you are an automatic citizen. But the law on citizenship in Ghana does not recognize children born in Ghana to foreign parents. If you are born in Ghana, at least one of your parents or one of your grandparents or great-grandparents has to be a Ghanaian. And that is what will entitle you to citizenship, to automatic Ghanaian citizenship, once one of your parents or grandparents is a Ghanaian.
Okay. So this is another question from Mr. Melvin Davis. It's asking, if I am planning to retire in Ghana some years from now, but I want to start my process now, what should I do?
So you can't really, if you are coming into Ghana and you're not a retiree, then you won't fall under, you would have to go through the work permit process that I have already enumerated. So you don't have, you can visit Ghana as a tourist, come in and then leave, but you can't really commence the process when you are not retired.
Okay. There's a question from Lani Chanel. She's asking, can you get a resident permit without having a job in Ghana?
So I have already stated that if you are not a retiree and you are not a dependent of somebody who already holds a residence permit, so be it your husband or your parents, then you cannot obtain a residence permit without a job, because the law is also wants to ensure that you do not have destitutes in the country. So if you are coming in, you should have something doing, or you should have proof of livelihood. If you do not, you're not coming to work, then how are you going to fend for yourself in Ghana?
Okay. So this, I think, two people are asking, can you go over the process again if you open a business in Ghana? Question is.
Okay. So when you incorporate a business in Ghana, then you want to apply for a work permit. The company, so usually in Ghana, when you incorporate, you have directors. So maybe you have incorporated your company, you are one of the directors, the law lead directors. So then your secretary, because you would also need a secretary, the secretary could apply, or the director could apply on the company letterhead for you as an employee, stating, because you definitely have to be an employee of the company. So once you incorporate the company, then you are probably one of the directors. The letter would introduce you as a director of the company. And so the company is applying for residence permit or a work and residence permit. So the first letter would come in as the work permit, and then we have the residence permit form that you would also complete and attach to the application, adding your passport. Aside the application letter and the company registration documents that you have provided, we would also need a tax clearance certificate. When you incorporate the company from the beginning, definitely you will not have made any sales or gotten any revenue. So you would be wondering what we need a tax, and then it means that you will not be liable to tax. However, we would still want the company to be registered with our revenue authority. And the revenue authority would issue a certificate and indicate that you are not liable, the company is not liable to tax. And this would be attached to the application, and adding your passport and all of the other. Yes, so I think these are the main things that you need to apply for the work permit. You would also need to do a medical, like I had already mentioned, the medical exams. You need to attach a police clearance certificate. And for the first instance, usually we require a police certificate from your country of origin. That is where we require, but subsequently, you could bring in a police clearance certificate from Ghana.
Okay. So another question from Anthony Witherspoon. Yeah. So he's saying he's been on resident permit since March of 2022, and also registered his store company in 2023 with a Ghanaian partner, and have lived in and leased property every year. I spend about 7 months a year in Ghana and 5 months every year in US. When do you recommend I should apply for naturalization? Let me go over the question again. So I've been on residence permit since.
Yes, I think I got it.
Yeah.
He says he's been on residence permit from 2022, and he spent mostly 7 months in Ghana, and then 5 months outside Ghana. So, like I said, the least period of determination is 8 years. So, from 2022, it means we are looking at 8 years. 2022 would 8 years from 2022 would be what? 2030. Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that 2030? Yes. So that would actually be the appropriate time to apply for your citizenship. But then looking at the 7 months you do every year, now you can do your own calculation, whether if you're spending 7 months every year by 7 years, how many months that would be? Would you get it? If you do not make the 5 years in aggregate, then you may have to extend your stay even after the 2030 to enable you qualify.
Okay. Then I think last question. So this one is from for SUA. Where are the payments made and which institutions are the payments made to based on resident permit?
The payments are all made to the Ghana Immigration Service.
Okay.
The Ghana Immigration Service, and it's done in person. So it's either you send somebody to pay on your behalf or you walk personally to our office and pay for it.
Okay. I think this one just came in, then we just take that one, then I think we call it a day. So do you have, this one is from Melvin Davis again. Do you have to renew the work permits every year? How many years do I have to live in Ghana to be considered a resident on a work permit? How many years do I live in Ghana to live in Ghana as a retiree to be considered a resident?
So these are two questions. If you, as I said initially, you can apply in the first instance, if you even want 4 years work permit, you can apply for that 4 years and then you would be granted. When the 4 year elapses, then you can apply for up to 8 years at the renewal stage. So it depends on the individual. Some companies or applicants would usually apply every year. Others would decide to apply for 2 or 3 years at the first instance. So it depends on the applicant, really. But you can't go more than 4 years at the first instance. The other leg of the question was on retirees, how long he needs to reside in Ghana to be able to apply for the permit, the residence permit. Is that it?
Yes.
Yes, so as soon as you come in as a retiree, once you have all the what I've mentioned, your proof of retirement and your means of livelihood, you can apply. We really don't have a period, a time limit within which you can apply. You can apply as soon as you come in and you feel you want the permit.
Oh, okay. I said last question, but this one will simply be the last question. Is there any incentive to obtaining dual citizenship if you have a non-profit organization in Ghana, have foreign card but resident abroad? That's the question.
I don't know what a foreign card is, and so if you are resident abroad, then it means that you do not, because the whole point of citizenship, okay,
yep.
The whole point of citizenship is you wanting to identify with us.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, so you cannot be outside and then apply for Ghanaian citizenship. That will not work. If you have a not-for-profit organization in Ghana, yes, that would be then the impact that this organization is making would be assessed, and yes, that could inure to your benefit when it comes to when you're applying for citizenship.
Oh, okay. All right. So thank you so much for
So
this
usually,
incredible insights.
in
And also,
addition to the
yeah,
company, sometimes would even ask for corporate.
yeah, please, you can continue.
Yes, so sometimes we would even ask for, even companies that have been incorporated and are doing their businesses, we usually ask for corporate social responsibility. We want to see what the company is doing aside just making profit. So yes, if you're not for profit and your impact can be quantified, there's evidence to show the work you are doing and the impact you are making in the country, it could inure to your benefit.
Okay. So this one is like a personal. It seems a lot of people are want me to ask this question too, concerning if someone has a criminal record from the US, because some are saying there has been injustice on mostly Black American men. So is there a process for them, or does a criminal record deny you of getting a resident permit? So that's the question.
That's a difficult one, because at the moment they would usually insist that administratively that this is the criminal record report should come from your home country, but maybe Ghana Diaspora Affairs can take this up and actually advocate for a reform in that requirement. I'm sure that at the time these administrative requirements were put together, maybe we did not um, think or even know about these situations. So maybe you could take it up and make an advocate for that particular requirement to be looked at again.
Oh, okay.
But for now, that's what it is.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, Sarah, please kindly join so that I close the program. All right.
Okay, Madam Abigail, we appreciate so much your time, the insights you have shared with us. And then we hope that this information will go a long way to benefit our family in the diaspora. Like my colleague started saying, we stand for advocacy and everything that concerns the global diaspora. So we are doing this to give you information, to educate you so that you know the way forward if you want to acquire a dual citizenship in Ghana. So thank you so much for your time once again. We appreciate this and thank you.
You're most
And then
welcome.
to all, yeah, and then to all our participants, we also want to thank you so much for making time to join this webinar. We called on you based on the various advertisements and the promotions we made, and indeed you have made time to join us this evening. We appreciate your time, and then we know that it's been very useful to you, and you take the information with you and then act upon it promptly so that you would get your status granted. And then lastly, to my colleagues and my boss, Mr. Joseph Bequin, thank you so much for giving our family this opportunity. We appreciate all the effort you are putting in to help our family in the diaspora have a very good standing in Africa. Thank you so much. And we also want to say briefly what we do here at Diaspora Affairs GH. We are asking, sorry, we are saying that if it's a visa you want, you have relocation consent, you want to come to Ghana to have a cultural re-immersion. Everything you want relating to Africa, just call on Diaspora Affairs GH and then we'll sort you out. We had a comment on our Facebook page about our family in the diaspora being cheated on and then being extorted and all that. We don't want that one to happen. So we have positioned ourselves as your vendor here in Ghana and in Africa. So if the concern is about getting unemployment, buying a property, wanting to relocate, everything you want to do, just call on Diaspora Affairs GH and then we'll attend to you. So that's about it. Finally, we want to thank you again for your time. We would make sure that we upload the video on our YouTube status and all our platforms so that all those who registered and are not able to join will have the opportunity to get the information on their fingertips. So that's all from me. Aaron, do you have anything to say or we'll call it a day?
Yeah, so if I may come in, also finally, Diaspora Affairs, as a non-governmental organization, we do also rely on you. Your donations will help us to bring more of this program and insights. We know that we couldn't ask most of your questions because of the time frame. So the donations will help us bring such more programs and also help in your advocacy. So thank you very much for joining. You all have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.